So FGO JP finally decided to just throw us a curveball, right? After we've all been speculating on maybe it's Galahad, maybe it's Kirei, maybe it's even Wodamin who's going to be the anniversary servant. And we knew it had to be somebody really hype because they felt really confident in showing us that we're going to be getting Lady Avalon or just Summer Proto Merlin for the summer event that's going to take place after the anniversary. But they were like, nope. Turns out the anniversary servant is finally Arcueid, the servant or person we've been waiting to come to the game for like the last, what, 3 or 4 years is finally in the game, and she's absolutely as busted as everybody thinks she should have been. So yeah, we're just gonna kind of skip the intro here and just dive right into her hits because this servant is a little nutty. However, this video is once again sponsored by Bai, and if you guys don't know what Bai is, it is essentially Japanese eBay, and basically what it allows you to do as someone over in the West is gain access to the ability to purchase Japanese products that may or may not ever become available in the West. And especially, you know, this is really frustrating if you're trying to hunt down specific FGO arcade cards that really are never coming over to the West. It is a very, very good service to track down stuff like that, or certain figures that never get printed over in the West. It just makes it very easy and very hassle-free in order to gain access to the ability to kind of like purchase some of these figures. And if you sign up using my link down in the description down below, you get 2,000 free yen put directly into your account, and you can use that towards any figures or any, you know, cards or stuff that you might want to go ahead and get. So they are a long-time supporter of the channel. I would greatly appreciate it if you just go, you know, check them out, click the link down in the description down below, sign up, get your 2,000 free yen, and, you know, be able to browse and, you know, cut down on the price on any of those figures you might want to get. Hey man, maybe there's like a nice Skahawk figure you want to get. It's 4,000 yen, you signed up, you got 2,000 yen, boom, you cut that sucker right in half. So check them out down in the description down below. And with all that being said, let's move in to your regularly scheduled programming. So starting off with Arcueid's hits, you wouldn't really expect her to be like this busted, broken servant just based on her hits alone, because she seems to be a little lackluster. She has a pretty strong quick card with 4 hits and 15% star gen. Her arts cards are strong with 2 of them with 4 hits apiece, but with only 45% NP gain, you might think it's a little weak. However, not only does she have a skill to pretty much rectify that problem, she also has a passive 12% arts buff that also makes her arts cards that much better. So God forbid you crit on one of these things and you just refund like all of your NP, right? She's also got the 5 hit extra attack, which I would normally meme about, but this servant is so good that I don't even need to meme about the servant's extra attack. Because speaking of some of their passive skills, this servant gets a 30% Omni card buff if they're on the Millennium Castle like battlefield, which is just absolutely insane. Just you appear on this battlefield, poof, here's a 30% Omni card buff. It makes her absolutely disgusting if she is ever appearing on this battlefield. But even outside of that, her skills are all just disgustingly good. Skill 1 might be a little bit deceptive. You see it and you're like, okay, so it's a skill seal on all enemies for 1 turn. It lowers their defense by 20% for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown, and it gives herself a 30% attack buff for 3 turns. Keep in mind, this is essentially double buffing herself in 1 skill by lowering the enemy's defense and buffing her own attack, while also providing some utility by sealing all of the enemy's skills. This in and of itself is already a very, very powerful skill. Sure, if you're using her for farming, you might want to save it for like the final wave, but if you're using her against the buff, just go ahead, pop this turn 1 and just absolutely decimate the opponents, because then you'll also get the benefit of sealing all of their skills. Do the enemies have any annoying dodges, invincibilities, defensive buffs that you might want to worry about? Worry not, you seal them off for 1 whole turn while also getting a massive damage buff against them. And this is literally just the first skill. The second skill just capitalizes on top of this by not only giving herself a 20% NP damage buff for 3 turns, on a 7-turn cooldown, which is multiplying into that attack buff, by the way, because different buff types in FGO actually multiply into each other. But it gives her a 100% NP battery. She literally can charge her full battery for free, meaning it really doesn't matter what you're doing. This is just a Koyenskaya compatible servant. Now, keep in mind, she does also have an AoE NP, so this might be a kind of broken servant in the Koyenskaya system, so just kind of keep in mind that she has 100% NP whenever she wants, and is already double buffing herself between skill 1 and skill 2, and if you pop skill 1, when you're on the 3rd wave, she also lowers their defense as well for an additional buff type to just do even more damage. And like, do I even need to go into any more further detail about the implications about having a 100% battery? Even if you don't have Black Grail, there's Heaven's Feel, which is basically Diet Heaven's Feel that you could use with this CE. If you're going into challenge quests, you could just slap her with 20-30 and then just have her fire her NP immediately, and then just also have passive star gen. You could give her just anything you want, really, and she'll just do really, really well. Because she's already giving herself a lot of damage, and then just the freedom of being able to fire her NP whenever she wants. And that's not even taking into consideration her 3rd skill, where she makes the entire party invincible for 1 instance for 3 turns, which is basically the Merlin AoE Nope skill, minus that being a 1-turn buff, but you know, it doesn't waste off based on hits. But this one is 1 instance that lasts for 3 turns, and then it just also, if you're on that Millennium Castle battlefield, just charges your allies by 30%. It doesn't charge yourself, it's not quite that broken, but keep in mind, Koyenskaya likes to fire her NP if you're using her as a buster support, because she charges her allies NP by 20% whenever she fires her NP, and Merlin, the other buster support, loves to fire his NP because he literally gives you all the generic buffs in the game. So giving them a 30% battery really isn't all that bad. God forbid you pair her with like any DPS servant, like, I don't know, Ozymandias, who also provides buffs to like the party by giving them buff success rate, battery, attack buffs, etc. And you just have like a recipe for something being disgustingly broken. But then there's also another effect on this, where basically she applies buff removal resistance to anyone that is aligned good, which is most of the people you're going to be pairing with her. Although Koyenskaya is not exactly a good person, but Merlin just falls under that category. So, you know, makes her really good if you want to pair her, especially with Merlin, right? I mean, still very good for Koyenskaya, because Koyenskaya still gets the battery and the defensive utility, which is the one thing Koyenskaya doesn't offer. It's just Koyenskaya doesn't get the buff removal resistance, but that's just like the icing on the cake. Then, if we just mosey on over to her NP, all that stuff about, you know, the mythical castle battlefield, she just changes it. Right? She just straight up changes it. She's just like, no, that's me now. I'm now the field spell. So you remember that passive skill that she has where she gives herself 30% card buffs, and she can kind of just passively buff all of her damage by giving herself just an Omni 30% card buff? Yeah, she just straight up gives that to herself. She's like, yeah, I am now this person. Thank you very much. While also dealing super effective damage against any chaotic enemies. And then if just like that wasn't enough, the fact that she can just grant herself this special mythical field that grants her all of these other buffs, and then also just slams chaotic enemies, it's just like, also, by the way, if you happen to be living human, take this extra 20 to 40% extra NP. Just, here you go ahead and take this real quick. Which, you know, unfortunately, Merlin is not a living human despite all the shenanigans with Avalon. But do you know who is a living human? Waver and Reigns. And you know what they are? They are generic support for literally any servant. So is Mash. Mash is also a living human, so if you want defensive utility, you can use her. But let's just go ahead and review just one more time what this girl does. She gives herself an Omni card buff of 30% permanently, basically whenever she fires her NP. She gets an additional 12% buff to her art cards passively. Her NP slams chaotic enemies, charges the battery of living humans, provides herself the special Millennium Castle field spell damage mod thingy, which then allows her to charge her allies' NP by 30%, give them invincibility of 1 instance, and if they're good, give them 100% buff removal resistance for a turn to make sure those buffs stick, give herself instant NP with a 100% battery, and then basically quadruple buff herself by giving herself an NP damage buff, her own buster buff for her NP, an attack buff, and a defense down for the enemy. And by the way, she seals all the enemy skills. Is this servant busted? Yeah, she's kinda disgusting. She's pretty dang nutty. Is it worth summoning for this servant? Yeah, she's pretty good. The only hesitation you could possibly have is that Lady Avalon, aka Summer Proto Merlin, is right around the corner. And when I said, man, they had to be confident that they were going to have a really banger anniversary servant by just releasing Proto Merlin early and showing that they were going to release her later, they were definitely confident, because this is literally like, do you like doing buster farming? Well, here's the servant for you, bro. Because she does it, and she does it in spades. She is absolutely disgustingly broken. If you were one of those guys just waiting for Arcueid to come out, you should not be disappointed. Again, I would love to hear all of you guys' comments in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about Arcueid. I think she is just disgustingly nutty. But let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know if this was a catalyst to help you summon the new servant. Leave a like and subscribe for daily FGO content. And with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.